Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
And welcome, everybody, to Kentucky's Voice. If you're just tuning in, if you watch this on TV, you're going to see I'm wearing a suit jacket. I normally don't do that. Why? Because I have a very special guest today in studio. Nate Morris running for, of course, that open Senate seat with McConnell deciding to go ahead and retire. Very excited to have you with us. Before we dig down into it, I want to make sure everybody knows we will be taking your text questions. In the final segment, it will be first come, first serve. So if you want to get in questions to Nate Morris, run for Senate, that is 502-571-0970. Once again, that is 502-571-0970. 0970. So get those in as soon as you can. Your host of the day, Andrew Cooperrider, Kentucky's Voice, here with Nate Morris. Normally I take the first 5 minutes and just kind of ramble, just kind of talk to fill the time before we get into big news. But I want to give you a few minutes here real quick with the first question, okay? And that is, what sets you apart from everybody else running? Why is Nate Morris the guy to choose?
Well, Andrew, we've only got an hour here, but I could go on for a very long time. There's a big difference here. I think to the voters of Kentucky, they see it. But look, I'm so proud. I'm a 9th-generation Kentuckian. I was raised by a single mom right here in Louisville. My family's originally from Morgan County, right in the heart of Appalachia. Most of my family members worked in an auto plant right here building cars and trucks. So I grew up with the perspective of the American worker and what that's like. My mom and I, we struggled. My mom was on food stamps. I had a dad that left when I was very young, got locked up for not paying child support, classic kind of deadbeat dad issues. And my mom and I, we struggled, and I know what that's like. And I know the pain and a lot of suffering that many Kentuckians go through every day because I lived it myself. Got a great education right here in Kentucky, went to public schools, and Andrew, I don't have to tell you, I know the education I got 30, 40 years ago. That's not what they're teaching in the schools today.
It's not.
We know that. But I had wonderful coaches and teachers. I was a pretty good football player. Ended up breaking my neck playing football, if you can believe it. And ended up hitting the books really hard and went to some great schools for college and to get my graduate degree. And, really proud of that.
Where'd you get your degree in?
So I went to George Washington University, and then went to grad school at Princeton and Oxford, studied public policy at Princeton, and studied business at Oxford.
Okay. So you got your business. So you have your MBA?
Yeah, have my MBA, yeah.
Okay.
And look, I'm proud that I'm not a lawyer. Andrew, the two guys I'm running against are both lawyers. We got plenty of lawyers in Washington, D.C.
You have a lot of lawyers.
But look, I think the biggest difference, to answer the question, I'm not a career politician. I've never run for office before. This is the first time I've done it. And I think we need more people coming from the outside, people that don't know Washington anything. And I'm running against two guys, I believe, that are no different than Mitch McConnell. And I think most of Kentuckians see that. You take somebody like Andy Barr, look at where all the money that he's getting comes from. It all comes from Mitch. Someone like Daniel Cameron, he would cease to exist without Mitch McConnell. And I saw these two guys running, and I said, look, if I don't get in, we're not going to have an outsider and a business person. And we know, based upon the results that President Trump is getting, I think that's what voters are hungry for. I think that's what Kentucky's hungry for. And I think the country's ready to have outsiders that are willing to shake it up. But, I'm financing most of this campaign myself. I always used to tell my opponents, I wish they'd wear one of those NASCAR suits to show all their sponsors and all the people that own them. But I'm proud to say I'm financing most of this thing myself, and I can say what I want to say, and that gives me a lot of sovereignty and the ability to go and fight for people in Kentucky.
Well, that kind of begins us off. Get in your questions. We do have a few questions that have already come in the final segment. I will be asking the viewer questions. That's 502-571-0970. Stay with us. We'll be back here in just 1 minute. It's short. 1 minute break. Stay with us, and we'll start digging into some meat and potatoes. But until then, we'll see you back here in just 60 seconds. And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider, here with candidate for Senate, Nate Morris. We've been asking him some questions. If you want to get in your questions, we'll ask those in the final segment. But, guys, it's first come, first serve, and we already have like 3 or 4 questions that have been texted in. So if you want to get those in, you want to make sure they're asked, you better get them in quick. That number is 502-571-0970. Once again, 502-571-0970. So I want to start off. So these are just some questions we asked all the candidates.
Sure.
So we want to make sure we get them asked here, okay? So first, on immigration policy, are you in favor of deporting every person who has entered or attempted to enter the U.S. an unauthorized time or place, or who evaded inspection by immigration officers?
Well, Andrew, I'm very proud of my immigration position. I think I've got the toughest immigration position in the country of anybody running for office this cycle. I've called for a full moratorium on any new immigration coming into the country until we deport every single illegal.
Yeah.
My opponents would never say this. The liberal media certainly won't say it, but we were invaded under Joe Biden. We had 20 million people come into the country we know nothing about.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's an invasion. It's an invasion. Any way you slice it. And Andrew, I know you know this, but I was Charlie Kirk's last endorsement before he was taken from us. And Charlie and I used to talk about this all the time, that this battle is a battle for our country, but it's also a battle for Western civilization. And so much hangs in the balance in getting these people out of our country.
Yeah.
Look,
how far are you willing to go? Because we see a lot of consternation and a lot of back off to a large degree on these mass deportations. Obviously there's a big fight going on with ICE and everything else right now. I mean, are you willing to say, look, darn the political consequences? We need to deport mass deportation. Let's get rid of all of them. Or are you saying, look, we need to, if they're there's an amnesty bill working right now in Congress by Republicans.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Are you willing to say, no, look, I don't care. They got to go. We got to vet these people. Or, we've got to do mass deportation. What's the level you're willing to go?
I've been very clear about this even before I launched my campaign. No exceptions, no carve-outs, no special circumstances. They all go back. And we need to take whatever means necessary to do that.
Okay.
And
very
I believe
straightforward.
Very straightforward.
Yeah.
No stuttering in anything I said. Now, you've got a lot of people out there, and you've got a guy in this race. You ask anybody in Washington, they call him Amnesty Andy Barr for a reason. I mean, this is a guy who naturalized 2 million illegals a couple years ago, bragging about this on the Chamber of Commerce's interview. You can see it on camera.
Yeah. That's something Chamber of Commerce likes now.
Well, and look, I believe there's 2 groups of people that like illegals coming into our country. First, I think it's the Democrats. Why? Because they are trying to change electoral politics. Mm-hmm. Stephen Miller said this last year, but I think it's very interesting, and it speaks to the point that if illegals were not counted in our census, Republicans would likely pick up 20 congressional seats, maybe up to 30. I mean, think about that.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
It's absolutely crazy. And now on the census today, we don't even ask if people participating are a United States citizen. That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And this determines congressional maps and presidential electoral politics. I think the second group are the Rhino Republicans. Why? Because they want the cheap labor. I mean, look, I grew up in a family of factory workers. My granddad was a labor guy. He used to say the reason why these illegals come in is the business class. They want the cheap labor. And that's why someone like my opponent, like Andy Barr, he gets all of his money from the big banks. And they're reliant on the cheap labor, and that's why they're willing to fund his point of view.
So following up on that, okay, so first, real quick, so obviously I think I'm going to speak for you. You probably don't believe that the Constitution grants birthright citizenship
Absolutely
to
not.
people
Yeah.
who were born in the United States if their parents came here illegally. But to kind of follow up, I mean, you see a lot of people on the H-1Bs programs. You have, Trump's Gold Card program, migrant farm worker programs. I mean, what's your view on those types of policies we have currently in place? You saying we need to end them all now and
No exceptions.
start from scratch?
No,
so you're saying
no
we're starting from
compromise.
scratch?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I can say that definitely does, I think, set you apart from some of the other candidates in this race as far as that goes. Let's move to domestic policy. All three major candidates have acknowledged in prior forums that the national debt is a serious problem. What specific areas of federal spending are you willing to cut, and do you favor a balanced budget amendment?
Well, I'm very proud that Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk have both endorsed my campaign. I'm proud of the work they did at Doge. I think it was fantastic that we had.
Do you think we've gone far enough with that, though?
I think we got to keep going.
Yeah.
We know that the government is littered with wasteful programs, checks to nowhere, if you will. We saw the situation in Minnesota. I was talking with my friend James Comer, and obviously oversight now is looking into Minnesota. And he said, Nate, that's the tip of the iceberg. You have no idea what's coming. And I think under all these migrant communities all over the country, I would not be shocked if there's scams and pay to play and all kinds of nasty things going on.
Yeah.
But look, I think that we spend too much money as a government. We waste too much money. And Doge did a lot of things, but I think most importantly, it's beginning to help change culture in Washington and how the bureaucracy operates to be more conservative and be more accountable.
So would you support a balanced budget amendment?
Absolutely. And I'm the only candidate in the race that's advocating for a balanced budget amendment.
So when you consider that, right, and so you'd say, good general principle, and I think we've heard a lot of candidates say this where they're saying, look, we won't vote for a budget that isn't balanced, or we're not going to put forward a budget that is increasing the deficit and sending us into this financial position where we're at, and I know you've said this before, it's a national security problem.
Yeah.
Because we can't afford to engage in some of the international conflicts going on because we just don't have the money to do it. We don't have the debt anymore. But how do you balance desire to control our spending while at the same time a lot of people look at a senator's job as saying, hey, how much bacon can you bring back? I mean, Mitch McConnell right now, the whole statue thing going on, and one of the top things, he's brought back billions of dollars into the state and federal funding.
Yeah.
How do you balance making those deals while at the same time sticking to a principle when it comes to spending?
Well, Andrew, the thing that I admire about you, you're a business owner. You started a business from nothing, from scratch.
Yeah.
And when you're looking to spend money as a business owner, you look at every line item.
Sure.
Does it make sense or not? Right.
Yeah.
And I think usually we know what good looks like and where money needs to be allocated. And I think as United States Senator, we have the power of the purse. And we need to go line by line to make sure the things that we're spending, they make sense and they're beneficial to Kentucky and they're beneficial to the United States. Now, as far as replacing Mitch McConnell, the person I'm going to be replacing, a lot of times people always ask me, particularly from his camp, well, he brings back the bacon like nobody.
Yeah.
And look, that's not something that I think that I want Kentucky to be known for. Mm-hmm. I want to be known for the greatness of our people, how hard we work, the jobs that we have here, the economy that we have here. I know you've been to a couple of my town halls. One of the things I talk about all the time that really doesn't sit right with me is that we lost Kentucky Fried Chicken to Texas.
Yeah.
And we lost it because we did not have the leadership to go and fight for our jobs to keep them here. That's what we need to put our prioritization on when it comes to creating economic opportunity, not through government subsidies and programs. I don't believe that's the answer. And look, it's a case-by-case basis, but that's not something I want Kentucky to be known for. That's what West Virginia and other states are known for. And you never hear senators from Florida or Texas bragging about those kind of things because they have great economies. And I want us to be known for our great economy and the work of our people and the incredible work that they do here, right here in the Commonwealth.
Yeah, I mean, personally, obviously, I'm interviewing you, but personally, when I look at some of the things that McConnell's done, like, for example, the Clean Air Act, moving coal jobs out to Wyoming and those types of actions, it just seems like McConnell's been a large part of the federal government breaking the legs of Kentucky, whether that's through regulating or outlawing a lot of our key industries, and then coming in and offering us a crutch and wanting us to say thank you for the crutch, you know.
It's awful. It's absolutely, you know, and you know, I was talking to someone yesterday about an example. You know, we've shut down coal-fired plants down right here in Kentucky. We got places in East Kentucky, their power utility rates are going up, and we're getting our energy from West Virginia natural gas. And they continue to raise the rates on us because we shut down our coal plants right here in Kentucky. Yeah. Now, tell me how that makes sense.
It doesn't.
Makes no sense. Absolutely not. And people like Mitch McConnell have let that stuff happen, and they want us to feel good about the stuff that they're doing in Washington. And, I brought back this or that. Meanwhile, our deficits are through the roof. And you have to ask yourself, we're $38 trillion in debt. We can't rely on the government the way that Mitch McConnell did over the last several decades. It's a totally different environment. So we've got to be pragmatic, and we've got to understand the key to Kentucky is creating jobs and finding opportunity for innovation and having ambassadors, having leadership that can go and fight for those jobs and bring them back here. And that's why, as a business person and outsider, I believe I'm best suited to do that because I've done it myself in building my own business. Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on a break. Please get in your text questions, 502-571-0970. Get them in. Honestly, we probably can only take about 3 more. I'm getting alerts. We've gotten like 12. So we could probably only ask like 3 more. So make sure you get them in, 502-571-0970. Coming back with Nate Morris here in just a few short minutes. So stay with us. We will continue asking the all-important questions. Andrew Cooperrider here, hosting Kentucky Voice for the day. And welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider, sitting down with candidate for Senate, Nate Morris. Very excited to be with him, of course. Always excited to be with candidates running for office, getting to know them a little bit better. So let's dig into our next question here. Okay?
Yeah.
So if elected to represent Kentucky, why should voters believe you will act independently when Trump or any other president, because obviously this seat will have 4 years of a different president with it, because it's a 6-year term, but where any other president proposes something not in the best interest of Kentucky or the nation, it does ask you to provide a specific example of a Trump proposed policy where you do not share his position.
Well, let me first say, since the beginning of this campaign, I've been with the president 100%. Mm-hmm. And I think that we need a United States senator that's going to back up this president. We've had people in the federal delegation that have continued to thwart the will of the voters of Kentucky. And Kentucky carried Trump by 30 points here. He had an overwhelming mandate, historic mandate. We haven't seen that in over 150 years in the Commonwealth. So I'm going to the United States Senate to back his agenda 100%. But let me just say this. I'm funding a lot of my own campaign myself, spent millions of my own money, and I'm happy to do it because I think that that's how you're able to say what you want to say. And my opponents, when they're owned by special interests, you take somebody like Andy Barr, my opponent, who sat on the Financial Services Committee for years. Yeah. And you look at where all his money's coming from. It's all coming from Wall Street. They don't know anything about Kentucky. They don't know anything about our people, what they deserve. I'm a 9th-generation Kentuckian, raised by a single mom. I'm able to fund this campaign with the perspective of an authentic Kentucky perspective. And I think that's what the voters, that's what they want. That's what they've been wanting for a long time. We've had somebody with Mitch that, I think that he checked out long time ago from the interests of Kentucky. And I said this in the debate the other night. 20, 30 years ago, he did some good stuff for Kentucky. We all know that. No one can argue with that. But the last 10 years have been an absolute disaster. We know that. And it's been shameful to watch him being so adversarial to a president that has a historic mandate right here in Kentucky. So, but look, I think that's why we need more outsiders and business people. We need people that don't need the job. Both my opponents, they need the job, Andrew. That's why they're running. What else would they be doing? I don't know. They need the job and they need the paycheck. Mm-hmm. And I think President Trump has proven that when you can't be bought, you don't need the job, you're in it for service like the founders intended, you can get a lot accomplished. And that's why I'm running.
So following up here, talking more about national policy, obviously we got the Iran, China issues going on. So first, let's ask this. What do you believe the best solution is regarding Iran, where things sit now? So we have the blockade in place. There's negotiations going on, I believe, over nuclear material buried in the ground. I've heard some different ideas out there, such as leave it there and just monitor it. I've heard solutions of we need to send boots on the ground to dig it up. What do you think? How do you think that ends? And what do you think the best solution is?
Well, look, let me just give you just a worldview perspective. When I was getting out of college, I was against the Iraq War. Never been a proponent of forever wars. I think one of the things that's been so compelling about the MAGA movement is that it is the desire to stay out of these forever wars, that we know they didn't work and they didn't get great outcomes. I trust this president. He's been very surgical, very tactical with the diplomacy and the military action that he's taken in now both of his terms. So I trust him. And he said to the American people that he had intelligence that he believed would lead Iran to have a nuclear weapon within a week or so time. So I trust him that he took the appropriate action that needed to be taken to prevent that from happening, to protect the American people. I'm also confident that based upon the president's worldview and what he believes to his bones and what he's been saying for over 40 years since he was a business person, that we can't be in these forever wars. So I'm very confident that he's going to get a good outcome, wrap this thing up, and we can move on down the road and get a situation that I think is positive for the American people. I'll also say that I think it's really shameful that we have the liberal media lying about what's going on in Iran. I was just on one of the Sunday shows a couple days ago on Fox, and the first thing I said was really pushing and fighting back against what Ro Khanna said, basically outright lies about what's going on over there. We've taken out their military, we've taken out their Navy, we've taken out all their infrastructure, taken out all their leadership. So I think we've already had a tremendous amount of success, and the liberal media won't say it. They won't give them an inch. And I think it's fundamentally it's un-American the way a lot of this reporting's been going on, because we know the truth and we know that we're getting a good outcome, and we're on the way to wrapping this thing up.
Okay. I do want to follow up there, right? And just ask, so, the overall goal as stated that you believe is that, hey, we need to remove the nuclear capabilities of Iran, right? I think a lot of people would agree with that. One of the concerns is obviously over the Strait of Hormuz. The fact that before this started, it was open, people could travel through it, and now there's a lot of consternation over it. When it comes to the Strait, what do you think our solution is there in order to, because part of the problem is that so Iran, let's say, crippled everything else, how do we stop these terrorists and other people from planting their own water mines in the Strait and basically making that Strait completely impassable, because we don't have somebody like Iran there to kind of keep a control on the more wild factions that you have in Iran that would do those kinds of things outside of just to negotiate something for a country, but just because they just have an ideological to their core reason that they're just kill everybody. So how do you balance that? Do you think the American Navy needs to stay in the Strait and guarantee its security for a long time? Do you think that we're able to secure it without that long-term presence? What do you think?
Well, the president has access to the best intelligence, right? And it's unfair for us to opine on all these different situations when we don't have all the intelligence that the president has. I think that's unfair to even make a recommendation in that particular case. What I will tell you is that he saw that we needed to take immediate action because they were about to get a nuclear weapon, and he had to take the action. Mm-hmm. And until you're in the Oval Office and you're facing that kind of outcome, you don't know what that's like. And I think that he has always acted in the best interest of the American people first before anyone else with every foreign policy measure that he's taken, in my opinion. I believe that, and I trust him for that. So, look, I think it's, again, I trust the president based upon the consistent worldview that he's had about the way that he looks at forever wars. He doesn't want to be there either, but we had no choice. Mm-hmm. And we had to take the action. So I stand by him for that, and I think that we've got the best people over there. I'm glad that my friend, the vice president, the negotiations that he's undertaking, I know that team, they are going to get a fantastic outcome for this country, and I feel very confident in that.
So we got about a minute and a half left. If you can answer this question in that amount of time, great. If you can't, we'll come back. But changing up gears, what specific qualities and principles will you look for when it comes to judicial nominees? One of the big things the Senate does is approving the judicial branch, and we've seen a lot of things going on over there. We got 1 minute left. Do you have a quick answer to that?
Well, we need judges, not politicians. And we know the radical left, they try to put politicians on the bench. And we've gotten a lot of crazy people going to the bench over the years from the radical left. Yeah. So it's about the Constitution.
We certainly don't have biologists on there.
That's right. That's exactly right. We need people that look at this role as interpreting the Constitution from a strict perspective. Constitution's very clear, following the Constitution and not creating wild, crazy policies from the perspective of a radical liberal politician.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that we have organizations like the Federalist Society. They've been a great vetting process. We've gotten some incredible talent out of that as a party. And I think it's continuing to cultivate the next generation of folks that can go to the bench.
We'll be back here in a few short minutes, continuing this discussion with Nate Morris and then asking your question.
At IKEA, your dreams can come true. Well, maybe not the ones where you're being chased by a monster. We're talking about kitchen dreams. And there are IKEA products and solutions for all of them. Whether it's a whole new kitchen, a statement glassware set, or just new cutlery. If you got big dreams or small dreams in any size of budget, IKEA can help you bring them to life. Visit IKEA.us/dreamkitchen to learn more. Dream the possibility.
And you're back on Kentucky's Voice. Your host of the day, Andrew Cooperrider. We're sitting down with Nate Morris, asking him questions. In the final segment, I will go through your texts. I'll give you that number one more time, 502-571-0970. But I got to warn you, we've gotten in like 15, 20 questions already. So I don't know if I'll be able to ask yours, but you can send them in. Maybe we'll get to it. So 502-571-0970. Turning now to cultural issues. And a big one, obviously, that has been a flashpoint for some things. We've heard some talking points from some talking heads that abortion is a big issue for Republicans. It's going to drag them down, everything else. So kind of following up on that, I want to ask, following the overturning of Roe v. Wade, conservatives still strongly believe Congress has an important role in protecting unborn life. What specific pro-life legislation will you commit to advancing in Congress that builds on Kentucky's successful state-level measures, such as nationwide funding, deployment of safe haven baby boxes at fire stations, and classifying abortion-inducing drugs like mifepristone? I didn't write this question. As controlled, the abortion pill, I do know about them, as a controlled substance or prescription only outside of emergency hospital settings.
Well, Andrew, I'm pro-life. And I share the president's position of the three common sense exceptions, rape, incest, and life of the mother. And I think the Trump courts got it right with overturning Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision, leaving it to the states, leaving places like Kentucky to make those determinations. I do believe in the Hyde Amendment. I don't think a dime of any federal funding should ever go to fund anything related to an abortion or an abortion. And we got to rip this stuff out of the government and make sure that we fight to get every nickel out of that, any of that funding that the crazy leftists in our country have done. So I've had a position very consistent 100% with the president on this issue, and will remain that way as a United States Senator.
So, asking about the abortion pill, there's a push to at least regulate this. Right now, of course, you can just get it like mailed to you. I don't even think you have to see a doctor and induce, an abortion at home. Does that concern you at all? Is that something you would push to have more regulations on, even just from a safety standpoint, of people going through? We've seen, I think I saw a story where somebody died recently, taking this pill without any kind of doctor oversight. Is that something you feel strongly about at the federal level, taken care of, or do you think we leave that to the states to deal with?
Well, again, I think the Dobbs decision got it right with the states. And I think places like Kentucky, they're going to take the action that they seem necessary right here in the Commonwealth, what's best for our families and our people. And again, I think I credit the president for getting these Supreme Court justices confirmed. And a big part of the United States Senate is making sure we get justices that are going to protect conservative values. And that's a big part of the job, as you know, Andrew, that's personnel. And so who we pick matters. And I think the president had some great picks, and they've delivered for conservative families all over this country. And I think that's why the Dobbs decision has been transformational. And I think leaving it to the states, they got it right.
What about late-term abortion ban at a federal level? Something that says, at the federal level, even saying, hey, look, if you're in, the third trimester, even at 39 weeks, 38 weeks, something along those lines, would you support any kind of abortion ban at the federal level, even something late-term, saying, look, I know it's up to the states, but this is a problem. If you're viable outside the womb, we have an issue with that.
Well, I believe in common sense restrictions, 15 weeks. And even the most leftist European nations, they have 15-week restriction. And
so at the federal level, you'd be in favor of a post-15-week ban,
common sense, absolutely.
The rest of it up to the states.
Absolutely.
Okay. Another question here. Who will you turn to for professional and expert advice on spiritual, moral, cultural, governmental, business, military, and economic issues? Will you rely only on your political colleagues, or will you also have in your circle of influence people outside of government who bring real-world experience and deep knowledge on the wide range of issues you will face as a U.S. Senator?
Well, I consult with my pastor weekly. We have a private meeting at least once a week. We pray, we read scripture. Do
you attend church right now?
I do, yeah.
What church?
So, I'll go to Southeast Christian when I'm here in Louisville with my mother, and then St. Patrick's in Lexington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that Catholic?
Well,
is that Methodist?
So I attend a conservative Anglican church.
Okay, conservative Anglican church.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are the folks that broke away that are obviously pro-life and
that don't fall under the English. What is it? Anglican
Absolutely not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah. But I identify. I'm an evangelical Christian.
Okay.
So I've attended a Bible-based church my whole life. Obviously.
Not to go too deep into
it. I'm happy to talk about it. I accepted Christ when I was 14, got baptized right here at Southeast Christian in Louisville. Dave Stone, who was the pastor there for many years, actually I ran into him at the Trump rally a couple weeks ago, and he baptized me when I was 14. And as I've said on the campaign trail, I haven't always walked with God, and I quit drinking 9 years ago, and obviously recommitted myself to my faith, and it changed my life, changed my marriage, and changed my family. And so glad that my son's 8 months old, and proud to share what my mother taught me about my Christian faith and about to pray, and Christ is the only way to salvation.
I'm going to turn actually to our texted in questions because we have a lot, and the first one actually does deal with what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
They asked, does Nate have any endorsements from the faith community?
Yes, absolutely. First off, I'm very proud. Pastor Jeff Fugit of Clays Mill Baptist Church endorsed me very early in the campaign. And you may recall, Andrew, that Pastor Fugit, he went through a lot during COVID. He fought to keep his church open when Andy Bashir was coming down on him. Andy Bashir called him out on national television. And Pastor Fugit is a Christian warrior. I mean, he goes to battle for his people and the people of Kentucky. And I was so proud to get his endorsement because he tends to back the believers. He tends to back the most conservative candidate. And obviously, we share so much of our worldview related to faith. And it meant a lot to get his endorsement and to get his counsel. We talk almost daily. Yeah. Some form or another, either through text or on the phone.
Well, and I definitely say, in my opinion, I think Charlie Kirk was also, faith leader.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And obviously.
Yeah, I was talking to Erica last night, and it's awful. She couldn't even go to the Turning Point event with the vice president because of the threats that she was getting on her.
Yeah, I saw something about that.
So, I just checked in with her last night, and, how you doing? And it's been so tough on her, but she's strong, and Charlie built an incredible organization. And I think in death, his work just began. And I think that's what's been so encouraging to see is that it really ignited a generation of young people to find faith and to get back to Christ.
Yeah. So turning to some questions here. Let's see. Any endorsements? Faith Community asked that. Mr. Cooperrider looks very handsome in his jacket today. For those of you who couldn't see it, I finger gunned the camera. Anyways, somebody just had a comment here. Nate is a blessing to Eastern High School by the way of his very generous scholarship. So I guess you have a scholarship you offer out there?
I do. So, Andrew, we haven't talked about my business background, but, I started a company with $10,000 on a credit card in the garbage business, not the nicest group of people to do business with if you watch The Sopranos, and was really proud to be in that industry for a long time, had a lot of success, and I established the Morris Foundation. I wanted to give back, and obviously I had a great experience at Eastern High School here in Louisville. Like I said, I had great teachers and coaches, and I wanted to do something. I remember at one of my reunions, one of my teachers is like, hey, we should do a scholarship for some of the best and brightest coming out of Eastern to give them opportunity, and I was happy to do that. Did the same thing at my grandfather's local union here in Louisville, United Auto Workers as well.
Question coming in here said, Nate, will you accept money from foreign entities?
Well, that's illegal.
I believe it is.
That's illegal. You can't do that.
I think they're asking about AIPAC. A lot of people look at AIPAC as a foreign entity type group. I think that's what they're asking. So,
well, let me just first say before I answer that question, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Yeah, that is illegal. That is true.
One of your guys is trying to get somebody in an orange jumpsuit.
Probably.
But
I'm summarizing for him.
I think I'm maybe getting the Israel question. Look, I support Israel. I've always supported Israel, but I support them because I think they're the most strategic and best ally we have in the Middle East. But everything we do, any dollar we send overseas, no matter what it's for, it has to be in the best interest of the American people.
Do you think this isn't a texting question, just me. Do you think we send too much money overseas as it is?
Well, sure. I mean, Doge exposed that, right? I mean, we were sending, remember all those crazy stories that we were hearing about all that funding that was going through all these NGOs? I mean, the crazy stuff we were funding, and we got people starving to death here in the United States. We got to take care of our own. We got to take care of our own people first before we think about anybody else. We cannot be a strong nation unless we get our own house in order first.
Right. But you're saying the money sent over to Israel, looking at it saying this is something that is benefiting U.S. defense. So money sent overseas, as long as it is supporting U.S. interests and so making life better here at home, you agree with. If, however, you look at it and you see it as a waste or something that doesn't have a direct benefit, you disagree with.
Every decision we make should be America first. And getting back to the question you asked me about Iran, I know the president saw the intelligence and said it is in the best interest of the United States to take this action. I can't speak for the president. I wasn't there, but that's what I believe his worldview to be and his ideology and philosophy, and it's been consistent over the last 40 years.
Well, we're coming up on a break. I've got 17 more questions have been texted in that I'll get to. But also, if you want to try to get yours in, if I have time to get to them, I will. It's 502-571-0970. Once again, that's 502-571-0970. We're coming up on a short 2-minute break, and then we'll move into our final segment. I'll just kind of be working through those questions that have been texted in. I'm your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider. If you wanted to, check out what I do, what I talk about, you can head over to theandrewshow.com. Look at all the places you can listen to the Andrew Cooperrider Show. But we'll be back in just a few short minutes. You're back on Kentucky's Voice, your host for the day, Andrew Cooperrider, sitting down talking with Nate Morris, running for Senate. You all have texted in a lot of questions, so we're going to work through as many of them as we possibly can. Let's first go to first question that came in. Nate, what will you do if Trump or Dems attack you like Massey?
Trump or
Dems. So I guess Democrats attack you or Trump attacks
Well, first
you.
and foremost, I'm not going to give President Trump any reason to ever be in that situation because I'm going to stand with him. I mean, one of the biggest reasons why I'm running is I think that he needs backup. He needs reinforcements. He needs people they're going to carry the MAGA agenda, and I believe in it to my bones. That's how I grew up, the perspective of the American worker, and obviously I think we've gotten ripped off by trade. That's why I'm so supportive of the president's tariffs. People like my family that work in factories. Andrew, I had members of my own family saw their job go overseas during NAFTA. I remember that in middle school. Hearing about that as 13, 14-year-old kid, that stuff stays with you. And I'm proud of his economic policies. Obviously, foreign policy, I think he's gotten it right. And immigration, we know we've gotten a bad deal because we've had career politicians that have left our border wide open. Somebody like Andy Barr that I'm running against, he's left the border wide open since the moment he got to Congress. President Trump sealed it in 6 months. We knew it was possible, but no one was willing to take the action and take the aggressive steps to make it happen. So I don't see ever getting in a situation like that because I'm 100% aligned with the president.
Mm-hmm. Comment came in, Nate had my vote via moratorium.
Yeah.
So,
good.
Because of your immigration moratorium.
Thank you.
Another question here. How does Nate feel about the Second Amendment? Will he promise to not support red flag laws?
Well, Andrew, they call us Gun-Tucky for a reason. I believe I'm the biggest proponent of 2A, maybe this cycle of anybody. I used to love to go to Knob Creek, machine gun shoot. I'm proud that I'm a life member of Gun Owners of America. I have been for over a decade. And look, we need people that are going to stand up for our rights. We know that the first thing that the government wants to do is take the guns away so they can take control of your life. We can never let that happen. And again, I'm running against somebody in Andy Barr that supports red flag laws. Mitch McConnell supported red flag laws. He found common cause with Joe Biden on red flag laws. This is absolutely horrific, terrible. Guns are a way of life here in Kentucky. They're part of our culture, and you ought to be able to carry wherever you want to carry.
Let me ask you this. Federally, we saw in the One Big Beautiful Bill the rollback on the $200 tax stamp, but you still have to go through the paperwork to get something like a silencer, which for most gun people, they know doesn't actually make it whisper quiet or anything like that. But then also we've seen states banning even body armor, the ability to purchase body armor as a citizen, plate carriers and as such. Would you support something federally to, one, stop those bans, and then two, would you support getting rid of the tax stamp outside the fact it's $0, but just getting rid of it completely, of having to go through the extra background checks beyond just purchasing a firearm in order to get a silencer?
Look, I'm for no limitations, no background checks. We got to get all that out of government. The Second Amendment's really clear.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just slowly chipping away at our Second Amendment rights.
Okay. Turning to more questions here. Nate, you've been on TV all the time and spending money. Why do you think you're polling at 15%?
Well, that depends on the poll. Now, the poll that you're referring to,
I'm not referring to
well, or that someone's referring to. That same poll had my friend Bernie Moreno down by 10 points, and he won by over 25 points in his general election. Look, the poll is only as good as the pollster. But look, there's one poll that matters, and that's on Election Day. And I know what I see, and I know what I feel, and what I see on the ground. We are surging all over the Commonwealth. And remember, Kentuckians, they're starting to really tune in. It's been a long election cycle for a lot of Kentuckians. We've been talking about this race for a long time. There's been a lot of anticipation, and this has been a very costly race, very expensive. But I believe as Kentuckians are tuning in, they're seeing our message as an outsider, as a business person, someone that's with the president on tariffs, on immigration. I believe we're going to win because people are tired of what they've had over the last 40 years with the McConnell regime and McConnell Inc. And my two opponents are subsidiaries of Mitch McConnell Inc. And people have had enough of that. And if you want to talk about polls, Mitch McConnell has some of the worst polling in the history of America. And I think for that reason alone, I think Kentuckians are ready for a change. And we are the complete 180. We are the complete difference that Kentuckians are looking for and what they've had over the last 40 years.
Comment coming in. Courage is contagious. Cowardice is a neoconservative sickness. Paleo-biblical Christianity is the cure. Agree or disagree?
Well, I'm a Christian, and I believe in putting America first. I'm proud that I accepted Christ. I'm proud that I stand for America first in every situation. And we have to take care of our own. We have to take care of our own house, get it in order before we can even begin to think about anything else. And I think why President Trump has been received with so much enthusiasm in places like Kentucky, he has given people like my family that have been forgotten and what the Democrats like to call the flyover states, given us a voice, the people that have lost their manufacturing job, the people that want to participate in this economy that have been left out because of globalization. He's giving our people a voice. And that's the same kind of voice that I want to give in the United States Senate.
This question came in reference to, we've all seen a lot of attack ads on this issue. So they did ask this question that says, Nate, according to the ads, Nate, you supported and promoted LGBTQ rights, BLM, DEI, and ESG as a business leader. You've said that you were pressured into this decision. You've also said that you don't actually support those things. Do you support DEI, Black Lives Matter, and ESG or not?
Well, first, this is coming from career politicians, and these are two guys that learned to smear from the best of them, Mitch McConnell. And look, I think BLM is a terrorist organization. It's a complete scam. We know that. We know all the nonsense that we went through in 2020. It was all a sham. Destroyed our cities. DEI has no place in society. And look, the only thing I'll say is the only preferential treatment I've ever given to anyone in the workplace is to veterans. And I'll never apologize for that. I believe veterans should have opportunities, and I'm happy to do that when I was a CEO. But look, I think these are just career politicians. And by the way, Andrew, these are career politicians that just 2 or 3 years ago, they were in my office begging me for contributions, thousands of dollars. And I know you love this story. One of them came to my Christmas party, would eat all my food, tell me what a great guy I was. As a member of Congress, would send out press releases telling everybody what a great businessman, what a great leader I am. The moment I challenge their power, they try to smear me. Mm-hmm. They try to make up all this nonsense. I don't think Charlie Kirk would have stood by somebody that believed those things. I don't think Elon Musk would stand by somebody that believed those things. And I don't think I'd be palling around with people like Don Jr., who said, I've been the greatest fighter and warrior against the ESG and woke nonsense. He's on record saying that. So I believe Don Jr. over my opponents backed by Mitch McConnell.
Nate, what excites you the most about being elected into the Senate?
To go and fight for Kentucky. We've had somebody in the United States Senate that we all remember the arguments we made about Joe Biden. Incapacitation, liberal voting record. Kentuckians are ready, and they're long overdue for a fighter in the United States Senate that's going to stand strong and be able to have the fortitude to hit the swamp with everything they've got. And that's why I'm going. Andrew, I believe in term limits. I know we haven't talked about this, but I'm the only person in this race who said, I'm going to serve 2 terms, serve my time, and I'm going to go back to business, go back to my family. I don't need the job. And the problem is that I'm running against 2 guys that have made their career in politics. Our founding fathers, for those of you listening that studied the founding of our country, these guys were not career politicians. They were farmers, they were preachers, they were business people. We need people in the mold that our founders envisioned going to Washington to fight for our people. And that's why this country has gotten so off track, is we've had these career politicians that are disconnected. They never created a job, never signed the front of a paycheck, only the back. And I'm so proud to go to Washington and fight for our people because they're long overdue for representation.
Here's another question. A census without proof of citizenship is useless. Would Nate consider returning to door-to-door census takers or by way of ICE? I think they're saying maybe ICE should do the census.
Well, let me be very clear. To participate in our census, you should be an American citizen. And getting back to my earlier remark about what Stephen Miller said, if illegals did not participate in our census, we would pick up at least, as a Republican Party, 20 congressional seats, maybe up to 30. So they are changing electoral politics. They're changing the makeup of the House of Representatives. And they're doing this because that's the only way their policies are ever going to get through, is by cheating. So by whatever means necessary to get actual citizens to participate in the census, I'm for it.
We got 2 minutes here. There's a question here. How will you work to make grocery, gas, and housing prices more affordable for Kentucky families?
Well, let me first say, I think I'm the only person in this race whose families at times struggled to pay the light bill or struggled to buy groceries or been on food stamps. I've been through that myself. I understand it. And I know there's so many Kentuckians right now that are hurting because of the economy. And I have tremendous compassion for single mothers, working families that are trying to make it. The best thing I can do is be an advocate for Kentucky for job creation. I think when you got a job, it solves a lot of problems. I talk to my pastor about this a lot. I talk to a lot of people all over Kentucky. If you got a good job, it's going to get you back into church. It's going to get your family back together. It's going to make you a more responsible citizen. And the best thing that I can do, as somebody who's created thousands of jobs in my career, is be an advocate for the Kentucky economy and to get our economy moving again and have somebody that's actually created one and not just been in the ivory tower like my opponents talking this or that about what they know about financial policy. They know nothing. They've never done it before. So I believe that is the best thing that I can do for working families to make affordability first and foremost related to job creation, because if you got a good paying job, you're going to be able to take care of those expenses.
So you got about 45 seconds left. Real quick, where can people find out more about you?
Well, thank you so much for having me today. It's so good to be with you, Andrew. I'm a big fan of you and your show. Go to natemorris.com. Go to our website. Be part of this movement. Come May 19th, we're going to bring massive change. As President Trump would say, we're going to rid Kentucky of the stench of Mitch once and for all. And follow me on X at Nate Morris. Would love to get a follow from you guys and get you involved in the campaign.
Thanks, Nate. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you all so much.